The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schuster. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
And a pleasant good day to you all, and welcome into the Gabriel Schuster podcast. I am David Schuster. Greg Gabriel is off today. He's a little bit under the weather. We hope that Greg is feeling comfortable at home, resting up, and he'll be joining us a little bit later on this week. And sitting in for him, very capably sitting in for him, is that debonair guy on the right. He hasn't shaved this morning. He grew that overnight. Yeah, sure did.
That's true.
That's the boss, Aldo Gandia. And, Aldo, we're going to start off with this because Greg told me that if he was able to do today's show, he predicted he predicted the Bears to win the game. I predicted Minnesota. I've been picking against the Bears now for the last 4 weeks, and ironically, they've lost all 4. Anyway, I told him that I would tease him. So, even though he's not here on the screen, I'm sure he'll be either tuning in now or later on. So, Greg, if you're listening, I am teasing you because the Bears were as bad as I thought they would be. And I think if you remember, Aldo, what I said going into the end of our last podcast, that I feared yet again that on national TV, the Bears would embarrass themselves. And I hate to say it, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, they did. And I'm just going to do a quick Greg Gabriel impression here. Shut up, you liberal, you coward.
It's like I'm looking around. Where is he?
But God bless Greg. Get well quickly. We miss you. And there's no way that I can fill your shoes, Greg Gabriel, but we're going to do the best we can. But I'm sorry, you asked me a question?
No, I just sort of made a statement that the Bears, yet again, on national TV, embarrassed themselves, and we'll go through this. I mean,
now, David,
yes.
you've been covering this team for what, 4 or 5 decades now, as long as I've been a fan, and so it has got to. I mean, how do you feel again witnessing at Soldier Field another national TV embarrassment? That as for you, and I'm interested also in the fact that I know you're partly a fan, but you're mostly a sports broadcaster, and so you're covering it from an objective point of view. How do you feel when you see this?
Well, do you recall the movie Groundhog Day? Where the same thing just repeats itself over and over and over again. Yep. And unfortunately, I mean, there's a little bit different nuances in some of these embarrassments, but when you take into account, I mean, the offensive line was horrible. I feel so bad for the defense. I mean, the defense has played well enough to win all these games that they've lost recently. They just sort of cave in after a while. And, they've had some injuries now on top of everything else. We'll talk about that. And by the way, we're going to be listening into some of the participants of last night's game. I know you're going to show some video highlights at the tail end of today's podcast. We'll also take some questions from the people who are tuning in, but we'll do that at the end of the cast. But in essence, I'm a very cynical person, if you haven't figured that out yet, Aldo. And it's just too easy when the Bears play down to the level. I mean, they're lucky to even be 5-5. When they were 5-1, I think I was pretty upfront and said they were lucky to have won a lot of those games, which they were. And I still predicted with Greg that there's no way they were going to get to 9 wins. I don't even know if they're going to get to 6 wins now. I could see them running the table in the opposite direction. But, 14 yards of offense in the second half, 14 yards. Listen, we could have taken people out of the stands. Oh, wait a second. There is nobody in the stands. But you get my point. I mean, they were just awful. They no offensive line. We've talked about that ad nauseum. I feel bad that Nick Foles got hurt, and apparently it's not as serious, at least the word today, is that we thought it was at the end of last night's game. But listen, he's a journeyman quarterback. He's got a little bit nice history going for him that he won a Super Bowl and was the MVP that year. God bless him. But he's a journeyman quarterback. They have no running attack. I mean, they're a disaster. And that starts from the top, Aldo. So, the next time Greg is here, we'll really scour from top of the organization on down. And the fans are upset, and I don't blame them. And I am one of those fans, by the way, but on top of being a reporter. You're right.
Yeah. Well, we had on Philly Godfather on the Mike North Advantage show last week, and he talked about Nick Foles. And he says, Nick Foles, you just cannot depend on him if you don't give him a stellar offensive line. When he took the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl championship, filling in for an injured Carson Wentz, it was because he had an outstanding offensive line. He had a bunch of Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen, and so he had time to throw, and he had confidence in the pocket. We're going to see some highlights a little later of you see his feet are not set. He's missing wide open wide receivers. He's not thinking because he's afraid of getting hurt. And lo and behold, what happens? He gets hurt. I mean, that was an ugly looking incident, and I'm glad that it's not as bad as first thought.
Well, the thing that came to my mind, which it always does when I talk about the Bears, is the famous Dennis Green line that the Bears are who we thought they were, or at least they're who I thought they were going into the season. Again, when they jumped out to that 5-1 record, I said, that's a mirage. And now here they are at 5-5, and honestly, I don't think they're even good enough to be a 500 team. Unfortunately, they've had some injuries. It started with Tariq Cohen going down. You never thought that would really affect them, but it has. The offensive line, which wasn't good to begin with, has been decimated on top of being bad now with injuries. And, Nick Foles goes down, and now we have 2 weeks to wonder, is Nick Foles going to be okay? I doubt it. Or is Mitch Trubisky going to be okay? Who knows? And then you're going to go to your third-string quarterback, Tyler Bray, and let's face it. I mean, he threw a couple of passes yesterday that are still floating in the air at Soldier Field, when he came in, and that's not really his fault either. But
he was seeing ghosts out there. I mean, he's throwing to a guy that isn't there.
Well, I was sitting by Grobstein. I was seeing a ghost also, by the way. I don't know. It's like I said, it's just too easy to be cynical about the Bears right now. But the bottom line is they're not a very good they're not a very good football team. They're a bad football team, is what they are. And, when it's all said and done, to be honest with you, Aldo, they'll be at the bottom of the standings in their division.
Yeah. And just a quick point here. Christian Morrison says, even if Foles is a fit, do you reckon we should start with Mitch again? I can't see the point of a pocket passer when half the time we don't have a pocket. And Christian is absolutely right. At this point, you probably need to throw in a quarterback that can run for his life successfully.
Yeah, that is a good point, by the way. And ironically, early in the game, it was Foles who was moving out of the pocket, throwing some passes early in the game. By the way, did it really make a difference who was calling the plays yesterday? No. I mean, you and I could have called the plays. If you don't have the personnel, and that even goes beyond the coaching staff, that goes further up the totem pole, you're in big trouble. So, listen, they invested a lot in Mitch Trubisky. If Foles is not 100% and Trubisky is able to play, I'd say throw him out there. What's the difference?
Right. At this point, see if he's salvageable. Give him the last, 5-6 games of the season and see if you want to bring him back. You're still going to have to draft a quarterback, Ryan Pace, and you're still going to have to make a better decision if, in fact, you're still going to have the job to do that. So you still have to bring in a quarterback with lots of potential, a first or second round draft pick, and but perhaps Mitch Trubisky is a salvageable project. If he goes out there and for the next 5-6 games, he throws the ball much better than we've seen him in the past. If he does some things with his legs, then maybe you have got a decision there of who's the backup. Who do you go with moving forward, Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky? It's at least worth watching because what we've seen of Nick Foles is it's clear he can't operate with this offensive line. He can't.
No, he can't. Listen, they gave up on Trubisky early on. They gave him the job, which we all thought was going to be the case, because of the truncated preseason or whatever you want to call it. But then they yanked him very quickly. So that sort of told you where Nagy was at that juncture. All right, Nick Foles came in. That was his designated guy in the offseason to go get a veteran quarterback. And we can talk with Greg next time because Greg said he would have been the best choice of everybody. I'm still not so sure about that. Great guy. No ifs, ands, or buts talking about Nick Foles, but not the answer. Not the answer short-term or long-term. He'd be the perfect backup quarterback for a young good quarterback. I'm not so sure I'm going to use the phraseology for Mitch Trubisky, but Nick Foles would be a good backup quarterback for a young, successful quarterback, playing backup role to him. But whatever, the Bears are just a mess right now. And you hitched on to a really good point there, Aldo. Is Ryan Pace the man to try and build this organization back up? He's had 4 or 5 years now. I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I mentioned it on our Bear football show yesterday. The McCaskey family seems to like him a lot, and Matt Nagy a lot. They entrusted Ryan Pace with the $100 million renovation of Hallis Hall. So they're going to be very reluctant to make a move, particularly at the general manager position. But it is clear that he has failed. Now, he has done a good job at building a defense, but he's made some mistakes there as well. You look at Leonard Floyd, a top 10 draft pick. He's not signed to a contract extension. They reneged on the franchise tag. Then he goes out to Los Angeles and he gets 3 sacks yesterday. Now, I'm not saying that we should have kept Leonard Floyd, we being the Bears, but you replace him with Robert Quinn, a 30-year-old who I think he's on the field. I see a guy with his number and his name across his back, but he's not doing anything. So what are you doing here, Ryan Pace? You're replacing an older guy who's way past his prime, although he did have a good season last year. I'm not going to forget about that, but clearly he is not the same player he was before, and he comes into camp with an injury, so it could be that he's not 100% healthy. So are you doing your homework, Ryan Pace? Are you really making the best decisions for this team, Ryan Pace? I don't think so. I think you're messing up.
Yeah, well, a general manager, and I'm no expert when it comes to being a GM for football, I'll be honest with you, but his number one job is to evaluate young players coming in through the draft, using obviously all his scouts and everybody else, also to evaluate what's already on his roster and to evaluate on other teams' rosters. His job is to piece things together. And if you take a look at the Bears right now from top to bottom, they're just a mess. Again, they're lucky that they're 5-5. Seriously.
Yep.
Going the wrong direction.
Real fast, too.
Yeah.
All right. You want to take us through this game and we'll comment on it chronologically? Yeah. Or as Greg Gabriel would say, why do we want to do that?
And you know what, Greg? I got Greg in my ear right now. I think he's right, by the way. We'll condense it today as best I can. I mean, yes, I did write all my notes down, but after a while, I just wrote yick, 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 and gave up. To be honest with you. Oh, by the way, I take a look here in my script from last night's game. You can see that I did write all my notes. I think I wrote 3 and out about 12 times, if I'm not mistaken. That was a theme of last night's game. All right. Anyway, Minnesota came out early, and they tried to get Dalvin Cook involved in the game, as rightfully they should have. And the Bears overall did a good job on him. I think he ended up with 90-plus yards, but on 30 carries. He had a lot of those yards in the second half. I know you previewed with a clip of why he got better in the second half. One of the reasons he got better, honestly, Aldo, is because Akeem Hicks went out of the game.
Yes.
I mean, Akeem Hicks is obviously just a mountain in the middle, and he stuffs the run game in the middle. And when he went out of the game, Cook was able to get beyond the line of scrimmage and into the secondary a little bit. But the Bears did a good job on him early on. And ultimately, Minnesota moved down the field. Oh, I wrote on this one play that Cook, in running through the line of scrimmage, I don't know who, but he almost got decapitated. I don't remember who's like, it was like that arm out of the movie The Longest Yard, remember? I think I broke his fucking neck.
I think he broke his fucking neck. Hey, I think he broke his fucking neck. One of the best scenes in football, in a football movie.
Can we insert that right now, just for laughs? Anyway, he, I thought he did break his fucking neck, to be honest with you. But Minnesota eventually got into the end zone, and Cousins threw a 17-yard touchdown pass to Adam Thielen. And I was laughing because then during the game yesterday, you put up a highlight and go, hey, Shoemouse, meaning me, my Twitter handle goes, it's my bitch all the time. Why don't these cornerbacks ever look for the goddamn football?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that one, maybe not as much, only because, you're so close to the end zone, you don't really have the reaction time as opposed to when you're 50 yards downfield and the ball is up in the air. That's when I really have a problem that cornerbacks don't look for the damn football. In this instance, it's not as easy. And Buster Screen, who has been beaten a couple of times, his coverage was pretty good overall.
Yeah.
I mean, he was right there. His hand was in there. But, the offensive players got such an advantage because he can see the plays. The ball is coming to him. The defensive player is sort of like, is like a cone on a traffic pattern or something like that, just being in the way. So is this the play here?
Yeah, actually, I don't have it quite queued up, but let me get there. This is the fumble, the first turnover on the first series, which I thought actually was kind of a close play. I'm not sure it was quite a fumble, but I'm glad it was called a fumble on the field and it was not over-reviewed. But it gives the Bears a tremendous opportunity. The defense makes a stop, and Matt Nagy all week long was talking to his defense and his special teams. Guys, you got to make plays. You got to help out this offense. And so in the first series, they do. And so what happens afterwards? Nick Foles throws an interception to Anthony Miller, and that play is coming up right here. Foles with plenty of time. Look at that protection. It is so beautiful. He's got time in the pocket. He looks left, then he looks over the middle, steps up into the pocket, and overthrows Anthony Miller off his hands. Now, the old rule, David, is if it hits you in the hands, you should make the catch, right?
Yeah, but that pass was high.
I agree.
And plus he's wide open in the middle.
Yeah.
He's open right in the middle of the whole zone coverage there. So it was a bad pass. Yes. And he had quite a few bad passes early in the game, to be honest with you.
Right. Now, I think coming up is this is the play that we were just talking about. Harrison Smith with the interception there on the Foles overthrow. This is the play that we were talking about. I love the fact that almost every week you are asking Greg, why don't these corners turn around and look for the ball? And I immediately thought about that, and I tweeted this out. And so this is Buster Screen. Just at this point, when I played football, sandlot football, I never played organized football or anything like that. I was told if you're playing cornerback, you take a look at the wide receiver, and as soon as that wide receiver turns and his eyes start to get wider, he's looking for the ball.
Right.
Just turn around and put your hands up. You might come up with an interception or a deflection, but instead he continues to play through and touchdown.
All right, listen, the best cornerbacks of all time were able to not only keep their their eyes on both the receiver but also looking back for the ball in the air. These are the great ones, okay? So it's almost like you keep contact. Again, who the hell am I? I'm just a guy playing the same street football that you did. But if you're able to keep contact with the receiver, yet also being conscious that the ball is in the air, then hopefully, you can do this at the same time. But a lot of these guys, and Greg says they're taught to look for the football. I'm not so sure that they are. I'm really not.
I mean, that probably is one of the toughest positions to play in all of sports. You've talked about it on our previous show. These guys are out there on an island. They've got to react so quickly. So maybe a lot of this stuff they forget during the course of the fast-paced play. But boy, oh boy, you would think that would be muscle memory by now. Just turn around and look for the ball.
Yeah, again, maybe not as much on that particular play as opposed to those 40, 50-yard passes downfield because the ball is up in the air much longer and you're that further down the field. But, again, it's still a good case in point. Look for the damn football. The Bears came up with 2 turnovers. They recovered a fumble. They had an interception later in the game on top of it. So, the defense once again did its job. I feel so bad for these guys. And now they have injuries on the defensive end of the football. Who knows what that hamstring injury is going to do to Akeem Hicks going forward. So we'll just have to wait and see. The Bears did get the football after that. And here's once again, Foles is such a weird quarterback where he's cold and then he's hot. And he completed 5 passes in a row and they got down into the red zone. Then they had a 3rd and goal. And Minnesota, each time the Bears got into a 3rd down situation, they were blitzing almost every 3rd down last night. You could see it coming. And if I could see it coming from like 80 yards away up in the press box, you would think that, not only should the Bears on the field, but their coaching staff should be able to see it as well. Anyway, An incomplete pass on the blitz, and then Caro Santos, once again, your MVP in last night's game because he's perfect, kicks a 23-yard field goal. But here's another instance, field goals instead of touchdowns in the red zone. It's been another terrible theme on this team all season long.
David, on that drive, I want to point out 2 plays here. Sure. First of all, we've got this play, the big, I think it was a 26-yard completion to Allen Robinson. I've been calling for these max protect plays all season long. You got to put in as many blockers as possible, and they did that on this play. You will see here. Actually, this is not the max protect play. This is just, actually it is. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in there blocking for Nick Foles.
And he did roll out to give himself even more protection and more time.
Exactly. And so there are only 2, because of the max protect situation, there are only 2 wide receivers going out. So he's got a choice. Who do I hit? Allen Robinson, or I think it's Darnell Mooney over the middle. He picks Allen Robinson, who was more closely guarded, and instead fails to hit. Look at this guy right here. He's right open for the touchdown. Yeah. He fails to go here. That's why I am so upset with Nick Foles. He's a veteran. He should watch that. Instead, he goes to Allen Robinson, and credit Allen Robinson. Despite the triple coverage, he does a great job of catching the ball and getting both feet in on the ends in the area of play. Now, let's go to that red zone that you were talking about. This just drove me nuts. Now, again, like you said, they're blitzing. So what do you got to do, Nick Foles? You got to look for the closest receiver next to you. You got to look for where the blitz is coming from. It's coming up the middle and the outside, and you got this guy here, Darnell Mooney, all open over the middle, but instead you go for the prescribed play out there. No, don't do it. Here's another angle of it. I posted it on Twitter yesterday. You have got to hit the open area. There's Kendricks blitzing. That's where the quarterback should be looking first, because there's a big wide open area there. And there's Darnell Mooney wide open.
Terrible.
Again, another missed touchdown opportunity. Now, when I posted this on Twitter, people were saying, yeah, but he had to get rid of the ball quickly. Well, that's the point. You get rid of the ball quickly there. Now,
the open guy.
Exactly. Wide open and right in your line of sight, right over the middle. Now, we must point out that Rashard Coward picks up the wrong guy. This guy is coming in from the outside. You always pick up the guy who is closest to the quarterback, and you let Foles deal with this guy himself by stepping up in the pocket. You want to give him a clean pocket here in the middle. Instead, Coward, number 69, goes to, where does he go to? I'm not sure. He can't decide. And so his late decision, he should have picked up this guy, would have given Foles a little bit more time, but Foles probably would have still missed the open wide receiver. So sad. Now, one more play that just to show this is how that blocking assignment is done. Here's the outside blocker. Coward now says, okay, I learned my lesson. I'm going to pick up the inside pass rusher. It does. And that play, Foles also learns that guy is open over the middle with the blitz. So a perfect example of how it should not be done and how it should be done.
Yeah, absolutely. On the play preceding, it was Mooney who was wide open over the middle. And again, as you suggested, he's the veteran quarterback. He should know from the blitz. That's why he's on this team, because he knows the offense. He knows how to read defenses. He should be able to pick it up. And the guy over the middle, I would say 90% of quarterbacks make that throw over the middle, or at least attempt to make that throw over the middle. So he screwed up on that play. He did not play well, and I've been saying this all along. He's a great guy, no ifs, ands, or buts, but he's a very average quarterback with limitations in his, abilities, unfortunately. And when you're paired up with a terrible offensive line, it's just a remedy for a disaster, to be honest with you. Anyway, Minnesota got the ball, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, I mean, the two teams, it was like, playing, what was that old game, Pong?
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. And it's not like Minnesota's a really good football team either. I mean, they've been playing better, obviously, the last 3 weeks, so they got the 3 wins, but they're not a good football team overall. And it's amazing. Their defense is not good But boy, did they ever face the right team at the right time, because the Bears offense right now is the worst in football. I think it is.
By the way, David, I got to share the story. We have a show called Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls. I usually share these stories on that show, but I got to say this. When Pong first came out, I was a teenager and I bought a Pong game for my girlfriend. And the way we played the game is that every point that I would score, she would remove one article of clothing. And then every point that she scored, I would remove one article of clothing. I would practice at home for hours and then go to her house and play with her.
You would practice what? Taking your clothes off, or practice Pong?
Practice Pong so that you have to take her clothes off.
You can play Pong. Yeah, I guess you could play Pong against yourself. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is she still around to play the game?
Actually, my wife is here, so let's not talk about that.
Okay. All right, we will later on. All right. Cousins is picked off, and here's where Khalil Mack made a really nice play. I mean, I've yet to see the replay because the TVs, unfortunately. There was an Amber Alert yesterday during the game. I don't know if your phones went off, but it did for us in the press box. And because of the Amber Alert, don't ask me why, the TVs all went out. The signal on the cable or whatever went out. So I was never able to see. Is this the play?
This is the play.
Okay, so I'm seeing it for the first time on replay. I guess he made a really nice play stealing the ball away.
Yep. Now, I don't have the other angle of it, but what's interesting, I'll play it back, is, I've been complaining, why is Khalil Mack falling back into coverage? He's a pass rusher. He should be going forward. And Chuck Pagano's response to that is, we don't want to be predictable all the time. Well, here's one time where the play worked in the Bears' favor. Khalil Mack properly diagnoses the play and gets over and basically steals the ball because the receiver Thalen bobbled it. So, and nice job by Mack running it back. And I bet you the one thing that is, I'm sure those guys were thinking is the defense was thinking, damn it, we should have scored because the offense won't.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, take a look at last night's game. The Bears score 13, 2 field goals because they can't get the damn ball into the end zone, of course. And they have, the play by Patterson, who earned his paycheck, by the way, last night, not as a running back, but as a kick returner. So the offense does absolutely nothing. And then after they get the interception, all they get is 3 points out of the deal as Santos converts a 42-yard field goal. Bottom line is, it's halftime. The score is 7-6. Foles' numbers in the first half, 10 of 16 for 91 yards, whoop-de-doo, a 51.8 QB rating. The Bears have 117 yards overall. They're still not able to run the ball, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote down boring. And then there was another terrible box lunch in the press box. I should have eaten the box for what it was worth. Why can't you do us all a favor and cater the food into the press box at halftime? You can make a mint.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is now. I don't want to criticize the Bears. They are giving you a free lunch, but man, oh man, it should be a quality lunch or a meal on a Monday night for sure. Too bad.
Whatever. That's the least of the problems, to be perfectly honest with you. All right. By the way, why don't we take a break here right now, since it is halftime, and when we come back, we'll go through the second half. But I think coming up, don't we have the NBA draft coming up on Wednesday night? I know we do. And there's going to be great NBA draft coverage right here in the Bears Bar Room. Is there not?
There is indeed. And I can't wait. You guys, your outstanding analysis with Mark Shanowski of the NBA and the Chicago Bulls on your show, Sharpshooters, has rekindled my interest in the Bulls. Because I'll be honest, the last several years, since things have gone downhill, my interest in the Bulls was like, but you guys have really rekindled my interest, plus all of the front office changes that we're seeing. And so I am super excited about the Bulls, super excited about this NBA draft on Wednesday, and super excited about the next Sharpshooters show. And just to let people know why I'm so excited, here's a clip from a previous show. Hey, Hoop fans, you want a great podcast that covers the Bulls from A to Z? Try Sharpshooters with Mark Shanowski and David Schuster.
I think LaMelo Ball will be the number one pick.
Whoever has it.
I don't think he's going to go to Minnesota. I think Minnesota will trade out of that pick. and some team's going to jump up to 1. It wouldn't shock me if that was the Chicago Bulls. Maybe you make that move.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. There's a rumor that the Bulls would go from 4 to 2. The Bulls would trade either Lauri Markkanen or Wendell Carter to Golden State, plus the number 4 pick to get number 2.
Well, Steve Kerr would love to have Lauri Markkanen, a 7'1" guy who can shoot threes, playing with the Splash Brothers.
You bet.
Who's a pretty versatile athlete who can run a lot of their offense. I think Lauri would be a great fit. And I don't even know exactly if they're in the game to try to move up to 1 or 2. It just depends on how high they are on ball, because if you don't think that he's a franchise-changing talent, you just stay at 4 and you take the best player on your board.
That's Sharpshooters with Sanowski and Schuster. You can find it on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, all of your podcast delivery systems. Just check for Bears Barroom Radio Network. David, maybe we should just talk basketball the rest of the show.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm looking forward to the Bulls draft on Wednesday, and still there might be some surprises here. There have been some names that have come up over the last 24, 48 hours that were not in the conversation over the last bunch of weeks. There's been a ton of trades already, and there will be more so before Wednesday's draft. So, yeah, Mark and I have a really good chemistry. We're both hoop junkies from way, way back. We're frustrated guys who, stopped growing at about whatever height we ended up at, and we weren't that good to begin with. But we both love the sport dearly, and I have a great chemistry with him. And we'll have a good time. We'll be back here on Thursday morning in the bar room talking about the draft. Unless the Bulls move up and get the number 1 pick, I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. Then we would come on Wednesday night. But as it is, Mark and I will be here Thursday morning to talk about the draft and everything that has to do with pro basketball. It's an exciting time in the NBA.
It really is. It's good. I can't wait for this draft. It's one of the most important drafts in Bulls history. Of course, the Derrick Rose one and the Michael Jordan one are the two other ones that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe they'll find the diamond in the rough. We'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, the only diamond in the rough in last night's Bears game was Cordero Patterson and the food that I ate. The kickoff for the third quarter started, and to Patterson's credit, he goes basically down through, like a hot knife through butter, down the sidelines. I kept looking, where's that flag? Where's that flag? But there was no flag to be seen on the field. Cordero Patterson, and I forgot about this, he tied the NFL record with his 8th kickoff return. Now, a lot of people go, well, what about Devin Hester? Doesn't he have the record? He's got the overall record for returns of kicks, but that includes punts. Right. He had a lot of punt returns. He actually had 1 missed field goal return also for touchdown. Right. Yeah. So he's got the overall record, but Cordero Patterson is now in the record books and eventually will probably be the overall singular record holder, but he tied 2 other guys for his 8th career touchdown. It's also a Bears record, 104 yards. So again, Cordero Patterson was the highlight of last night's game for the Bears.
He really was. And by the way, I have a highlight. So let's listen to Cordero talk about the kick and the highlight.
I mean, honestly, I just got to give it up to those 10 guys, man, that was blocking for me, man. They did a heck of a job, man. And, we work it every week, man. Every week at practice, man, we just every time we get the ball, we want to go out there and kick our return and score. So, the boys did a heck of a job. They had a lane open for me no way I could have missed it. So, it got through, and we got the touchdown.
You were able to throw the peace sign up, it looked like, there at the end?
I don't know what I did, man. I was blacked out at the time.
It was good to finally see him return one. I know that Matt Nagy said after the game they were really putting not pressure, but really bringing it up a lot of special teams guys. You got to make big plays. You got to make big plays, and he did. It was a great way to start the second half. And you thought it was going to kind of galvanize and motivate this offense.
No, that was the game should have ended right then and there. It's really surprising. We've talked about this each and every week. I don't understand. The man's got talent. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's one of the many reasons why they got him is to return kicks. But they've tried him in other facets on the offense, and it just hasn't worked. Certainly running the football has been a disaster, and really throwing the ball out of the backfield really hasn't panned out that much as well. So it's one of the mysteries, to be honest with you, why Patterson has not been able to contribute more offensively like he has on special teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is bizarre. Although I'll tell you one thing, he had his best night as a running back, right, this season, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, I mean, comparatively, yes, it was, because all the other ones have been beyond horrible. So yeah, he got some yards, and he also caught a couple of swing passes, especially early in the game. But again, the man's got so much talent. There's no question about it. And he's got size on top of everything else, and he's got speed. I'm just surprised that it hasn't worked.
Yeah,
and again, we talked about this early on. Also, Bill Lazor, called the plays yesterday. Did you notice any difference? Because I certainly didn't.
I think in the first half, I did. There was, there were more passes thrown, down the middle, and the potential for bigger plays, and there was more max protect calls to try to, and more rollouts. So there was a bit of a difference, but it just didn't work in terms of execution. There weren't any points, but I did notice a slight difference.
Okay. All right. The Bears, with that touchdown by Patterson, take the lead 13-7. And I thought the same thing you did, Aldo. I go, wow, I think, this is going to turn this game around for the Bears. Unfortunately, after the defense did their job 90+% of the time last night, Dwayne Harris fumbled that punt, and he got injured on that punt on top of it. And I've been having a feeling, because the kid is so daredevilish, that you figured one of these times he's going to muff one, and unfortunately it came at the wrong time in last night's game. Are we going to see that highlight here right now?
Yeah, this is indeed the highlight. And I said on Twitter when this happened is he clearly is realizing right now, I should probably fair catch, but I wasn't brought here to do that. So I'm going to make the catch. Oh, no, I'm not going to make the catch. And there's the fumble. And you're right. He did get injured. And so we may be seeing Anthony Miller now in that role for the rest of the season, which worries me because Anthony Miller is so injury prone with that shoulder. And now Miller can do a good job. We saw him have a good run back late in the game to put the Bears in good field position. But boy, oh boy, Harris is going to be missed because he was pretty good with the exception of that one play.
Yeah, I think he was running up the field before he caught the ball. And, like I said, I've been thinking to myself, I think he's going to drop one of these times. And unfortunately, it happened at the wrong time. Once again, though, after that, in great field position, the Bears defense against them held. And they forced yet a field goal. And Dan Bailey kicks the field goal. So at that point, let's see. It was 13-10. Then, let's see, another field goal, I think it was, made a 13-13 by Bailey. I think at this point, Akeem Hicks, unfortunately, went out of the game. And when he went out of the game, you knew something was wrong because he walked over to the sidelines. He sat down by himself. I was watching him all the way. He took his helmet. He slammed it down to the ground. I couldn't detect what was wrong with him as he was walking off the field, but when they said it was a hamstring injury, I mean, obviously he knew what the problem was, but we couldn't tell visibly what the problem was from where we were sitting up in the press box.
Yeah, I actually put up on Twitter a shot of him walking off the field, and he mouths, and I actually did a audio dub, my voice, his lips moving, saying, "I pulled my hamstring."
Oh, okay.
And then shit. Hey, I got another highlight to share, and this is which one is this one? This is, first of all, this is after the punt fumble. Now, I wanted to show this. This is in the third quarter, late in the third quarter. I wanted to show the breakdown in protection here. Cody Whitehair has had a really bad season this year. And, it could be because of all the changes with people around him and so forth. But whatever the reason, he has not played well. Here's your center, Cody Whitehair. And here is, he fails to properly pick up the blitz. He starts veering to his right. You're going to watch this guy here. This guy is a rookie defensive lineman, DJ Woonham. He's going to veer inside, and Cody is going to flat out miss him, and therefore gets the sack. Saw how he just pushes Cody Whitehair aside with one arm. See it one more time. Coming up here. with his right hand, he just pushes Cody Whitehair aside and gets to Foles and sacks him on a 3rd down and 6. And the Bears punt and give up good field position to the Vikings. Now, one other play I want to show you. That's the rookie they're celebrating the sack. This is Dalvin Cook. This is his longest run of the day. Now, Akeem Hicks is gone by this point in the game. And what I want to show you here is look at the holding call that is missed by the referees. He's being held so blatantly, and you'll see Trevathan ask for the call afterwards. It allows Cook to get his longest run of the night, a 12-yarder. Look at Trevathan raise his hands up saying, what the hell? And hey, the Bears lost because of a terrible offense. I'm not, going to lie about that, but the truth is that the referees made some bad calls too. How about when Nick Foles got hit in the head with in the helmet? That was a missed call. So it doesn't help when you're losing and playing miserably, and the officials just pile on with bad calls.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cousins, by the way, took advantage. Ultimately, he throws his 2nd touchdown pass of the game to Thielen. They blow the extra point. I had my head down and go, what do you mean they blew the extra point? You know what? Nowadays, with 33-yard extra points and some periodic fumble snaps and all that, which is what happened there, you can't take your eyes off extra points. Once upon a time, it was just a given. You went to the fridge to get a beer or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
Well, you know what's funny, David, is we had on Arif Hassan of The Athletic. He covers the Vikings for The Athletics on Buffon 55. And one of the things he told us, because we asked him about special teams, he said, keep an eye on the long snapper for the Vikings. They've had problems all season long. And so therefore, if you would have listened to Buffon 55, you would have known that was going to happen.
Well, special teams was a big factor in last night's game, both good and bad. I mean, let's say it's Patterson, the touchdown, that's good. Unfortunately, the muffed punt, bad. The extra point missed by Minnesota, bad. Both field goal kickers were 2 for 2 on the night. Good for that. But there was a lot of special teams plays that factored into last night's game.
Yep, indeed. And, I'll save this thought for when we close the show. Please go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, 19-13. Then, Minnesota at this juncture, they're scared of Patterson kicking off to him. And by the way, Bailey kicks off. Nowadays in football, you don't want somebody to return it, and you want to make sure that they don't have great field position. You kick the ball out of the goddamn end zone. But Bailey was not able to do that in last night's game, I think, other than one time.
Right.
So they were squib kicking it. And so the Bears actually got the ball at the 37-yard line, which is good field position.
Yep.
Again, special teams play factored into last night's game. Bottom line is, Anthony Miller had a nice punt return, like you alluded to, in the 4th quarter. Then the Bears were facing a 3rd and 5, and this is where I thought the play calling was at its absolute worst. 3rd and 5. I don't know if you have this one.
I do, actually.
Okay. It was a stupid pass play behind the line.
Yeah. Let me, I think this is the touchdown play, by the way, that you mentioned earlier. And, I just want one quick point about this. In the NFL today, quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball quickly. It's a 2-3 step drop and get rid of the ball. And one of the reasons Khalil Mack, I think, is not getting as many sacks as he should be getting is because he not consistently, but many times he goes wide and there's just no way to get to the quarterback. So watch Khalil Mack here on this touchdown. Where'd it go? Watch Khalil on this touchdown. He just goes so wide and then he cuts back inside, and teams have learned that he goes wide, and then they send the guard over to help. Watch the right guard. He's now going to leave the double team in the middle and help on Khalil. And that is part of the reason that we're not getting there on time, is because Khalil consistently goes wide. Now, I'm not Greg Gabriel. That's just my viewpoint on things. So that's part of it. Now, getting back to the highlight that we were going to show, this is that Dalvin Cook or excuse me, not Dalvin Cook, but this is that 3rd down and 5 play. Everybody is wondering, why the hell are you calling a wide receiver screen? This is with 3 minutes to go in the game. It's 3rd down and 5. Well, it actually is not a terrible play call. The execution, again, is totally wrong. Look at the right guard and right tackle. The right tackle is going to, and that's Rashard Coward. He is not going to sustain his block, which is going to allow the defender to get to the wide receiver very quickly. And then the right guard, Jermaine Ifedi, who has got an ass as big as the John Hancock building, we're asking him to get way outside here and put a block on this defender. He just doesn't have the motor to get there. So watch those two guys. There's the bad block there, and there's Ifedi getting there late, and he makes the play. And now all of a sudden it went from a 3rd down and 5 to a 4th and 10.
Yeah, maybe there's a time and a place for that, for a play like that. I get it. Listen, you want to have all your different arrows and whatever it's called in the quiver or whatever the hell it's called. But I just don't think that's the play in that situation. I just don't. You want to move further down the field. You don't want to. I just don't like going backwards. I just think there's too many things that can go wrong on a play like that. You want to do that in the 2nd quarter or early in the game when you're, like 2nd and 8 or something like that. But a 3rd and 5 situation where you got to be moving further down the field to throw a pass basically behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know. Just it just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you. And then on the following play here is the play that I actually went to bed last night just thinking about this play. This is, again, now 4th and 9 because of that play. Nick Foles is going to go for it. He's going to throw the ball to Anthony Miller, and it's just beyond his fingertips.
He was open.
He was open. Yep. Foles does a nice job of climbing the pocket, throws the ball. Oh, my gosh. I could not sleep because I kept thinking about that stupid play. Oh, that's it for the highlights, man. I'm done.
You know what you should have done at that point? You should have gone and played Pong. Wake your wife up and go play Pong. And yet they still had another chance because Minnesota was not able to pick up a 1st down, and the Bears, were out of timeouts at this point. So, and this is when Foles unfortunately got hurt, and then Bray comes into the game. The game was over at that point, but they had numerous chances. But listen, at this point, Aldo, bad teams will find ways of losing games, and the Bears found multiple ways of losing last night's game because they're not a good team.
You nailed it. You nailed it. They are not a good team. Let's go to some of the post-game comments. We've got Matt Nagy here talking about how frustrated are you that you finally got good field position from the defense and from special teams and that the offense couldn't convert.
It's high, Dan, because as you all know, this whole season, we've been doing really well in defense. We've been struggling a little bit with the field position. We're letting teams kick field goals, not giving up touchdowns, and that's great. And that's what feels good. But we weren't getting so many turnovers and takeaways. We really put a huge emphasis on that all week long. And to get those early on in the game and get the field position on those. And then defensively, we've been challenging CP, and these guys have been taking it to heart to get a touchdown on a kickoff return, and we got one. And so that's the part when, that's frustrating is we do all that. We have field position and we still can't capitalize. That's the part that the why part,
And then Matt Nagy was asked, now during the bye week, how do you get these players to stay positive?
Yeah, no, by just persistence over resistance. We had some guys break it down in the locker room at the end of the game there, and I was impressed with what they had to say. And again, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it goes to show the character of that we're fighters. And as hard as it is, and as frustrating, and we, like you said, you haven't won in a month. We got to just keep using that persistence over resistance and just keep fighting and keep staying together. And eventually something here, will hopefully change. And I think that's where we got to believe and trust and keep playing for each other.
Eddie Jackson was one of the guys who talked in the locker room after the game, and apparently it was a very fiery, impassioned speech. And he was asked after the game, how frustrating is it for the offense? For the defense, given that the offense is just failing over and over and over again.
I mean, it's tough, it's tough, but like we go out there every week knowing we're gonna accept this challenge to put this thing on our back. We got guys like Keen, Mac, Danny, me, Roquan, Cal Fuller, a lot of guys, that really sit up here and hold each other accountable, and we accept the challenge. Like, we don't care what offense do, we don't care if they put no points on the board. All we know is if the opposing team don't score, they don't win. So for us, we want to continue to accept that challenge week in, week out. And like I said, it's a team sport. You can't do it without the offense. The offense can't do it without the defense. So we just got to go out there, like I said, hold each other accountable and continue to fight. It starts in practice, and it starts when you get down in the game. If you're not getting the ball, you got to eliminate all the selfishness on the team, and continue to play for one another, because it's going to take all of us, and we know it. At this point, like I said, roster for roster, name for name, pound for pound, we got some of the best players hands down. And we just got to learn how to communicate better and hold each other accountable and be there for your brother when he needs you the most.
There's a lot to unpack there, right, David?
Well, first of all, I love his jacket.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I want one of those. That was really nice.
You'd look awesome in an orange jacket.
Yeah. You know what? I hate to say this, Aldo, because you're right. I've been covering sports forever and ever and ever, seemingly. And I've heard a lot of that stuff after games, especially by teams that have lost. And they have fiery speeches after games. First of all, they're not going to play another game for 2 weeks, okay? Now the bye week, and then they're at Green Bay, in 2 weeks. And by the way, I'm just wondering, can NBC flex out of that game?
I believe they can.
I don't think they will, because
no, that's usually a high-rated game.
Yeah, it is. The Bears are still, a big audience, obviously. It's after Thanksgiving. Green Bay is, still leading the division, yada, yada, yada. But I was thinking, if it wasn't Green Bay, I think, NBC might flex out of that game. But back to my original point that I was starting to make, I've heard stuff like that, we're going to band together and fiery speeches and yada, yada, yada. But you know what? Then they go home and they realize that the team is really not that good. That's the real realization. And so, whatever comes out of speeches like that, and God bless that they at least say that, as opposed to, sniping against each other. But yeah. I hate to say it, but it's pretty much forgotten by the next day. And then you get out in the field and you practice and you try and get it all back together. But then the next game starts and you're still with the same talent or lack thereof. And so, like I said, kudos that they say the right things, but it's a win or loss kind of league. And, right now they're not going to win much.
One of the things buried in what he said there was, guys got to stop complaining about getting the ball. And so you got to wonder, who's coming up to Eddie Jackson, who from the offense is coming up and saying, man, I wish they would give me the ball more. Maybe it's Lamar Miller who caught a pass, or Artavius Pierce or Jimmy Graham. Did Jimmy Graham play yesterday? I don't think he caught a pass or anything. There is clearly, I think what he was saying there is that we are starting to see some dissension going on. I think players are starting to complain. I think even, in the last couple of press conferences, Nick Foles has been really stressing, we got to stay together. We got to stay together. You know why he's saying that? Because they're not staying together.
Yeah. Well, and I'd be shocked. I'll be honest with you, even though the defense will always say the right thing and, we have to take care of our side of the football and we have faith in the offense. Seriously, I doubt that they have faith in the offense at this point, because the offense doesn't do anything. Yeah. And like I said, the defense has played well enough in this 4-game losing streak to have won each and every one of those games if the Bears had a reliable, healthy offense, of which they don't have either.
Yeah, it is very sad. Now, one other thing I wanted to bring up about those sound bites I played there at the end, Matt Nagy saying persistence over resistance.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Could we get a shirt in the bar room saying that, persistence over resistance?
That's something that I would tell the guys. We would go out to the club at night and, you'd ask a girl to dance and she'd say no. And then I would say, hey guys, persistence over resistance, go get her.
That and about 10 shots of alcohol, that might get you something eventually.
I hear you.
Maybe. We're at this point here with Greg. I usually go over all the games, but it's a couple of days old. I just wanted to point out a couple of games. First of all, Pittsburgh won again, and they talk about practice. Ben Roethlisberger didn't practice at all last week because he was in the COVID, whatever you want to call it, protocol. He goes out and throws 4 touchdown passes with no practice. So that was one thing I wanted to point out. And the other one was the Buffalo-Arizona game, and obviously the Murray touchdown pass to Hopkins. It was a miracle play. But Greg has been saying all along, well, Arizona's not that good. Well, guess what? Arizona is a lot better than Greg gives them credit for. And I'd love to see those two teams go at it again. I don't think they will in the postseason, but that was an exciting game the other day.
I totally agree. I think Cliff Kingsbury, the Arizona coach, is starting to prove that he belongs in the NFL, and his wild ideas of how to run an offense are starting to pay off. Kyler Murray, who I was not high on when he came out of the draft, I thought, here's a guy that played a lot of baseball during college, and he's kind of small, and he relies on his legs a lot. He's not a pure thrower and so forth. Boy, he's proven me wrong. He's playing at a really, really high level. And so I think the Arizona Cardinals are a team that could contend for the Super Bowl this year, and will probably be contending for many years to come if they get lucky and are able to replace some of the veterans who will soon retire, like Larry Fitzgerald and a couple of other guys.
Yeah, and a lot of people questioned, why did Miami make the quarterback change? Because Fitzpatrick, at least got his team to 3-3. Well, to a T, as I call him, has now gotten 3 wins in 3 games. So, Miami was not only looking to the future, but they were looking to the present. And, so far they're undefeated with the quarterback change. Elsewhere around the league, Detroit squeaked one out against Washington, a 59-yard field goal on the last play of the game. That was sort of exciting for them. Green Bay wins, not really played great, but I fear what Aaron Rodgers is going to do to the Bears in the next game. I really do.
Yeah, if these injuries, if guys like Akeem Hicks are not playing against Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be a pretty ugly game. Well, there's a lot of pride with this Bears defense, and they got still good players. It's just not looking good. I'll tell you what is looking good. David Robinson in the chat room says that he is going to this weekend take 10 shots and play a persistent strip ball game. Way to go, David.
My kind of guy.
At this point, why not?
Yeah. As you were playing some of those highlights and some of the sound bites, I kept looking at the number. The Bears had all of 149 yards of offense yesterday. Oh, my God. 149, that's not even peewee football. And again, I think they only had 14 yards in the second half. So
yeah, that was it. A really pathetic offense. we know that the team has struggled all season long in the third quarter. They have yet to score a touchdown, the offense. And so you've gotten a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, but not an offensive touchdown. That's pathetic.
Beyond pathetic. College football, I'm going to be at the Northwestern game on Saturday.
Cool.
Should be a good one, Northwestern and Wisconsin. This is for, whoever wins this game will be on the Big Ten championship, likely against Ohio State, who's got a big game against Indiana this weekend. Notre Dame won a big game. I wanted to ask Greg about the Florida quarterback, Kyle Trask, who threw 6 touchdown passes. Is he on teams' radars, the 3 quarterbacks that will for sure be in the first round. Is this guy a first-round pick as well? Where does he rank among the other guys? So we'll ask Greg about that. And
David, real quickly on that point, I've been doing a little research on the quarterbacks. Right now, Kyle Trask is projected to be a second-round quarterback, but he could move up quickly. We've seen quarterbacks who were projected at second, third round. They have a good final part of the season, and they test well at the combine and some other things, and he could move up into the first round. So, and I actually saw him mocked to the Chicago Bears. I forgot what website it was, but mocked to the Chicago Bears as a second round pick, an offensive lineman in the first round, which they desperately need, and Trask in the second round. That might not be a bad scenario, but that's weeks, months away.
We'll ask Greg about that on our next podcast. And our next podcast, not only will we preview, of course, the Bears' next game, which will be against Green Bay, but we'll also basically, even though we're past the halfway point, we'll give our grades. And listen, I know all about failing grades on report cards, so I have no problem giving those out to, guys on football teams. So, we'll do that with Greg on our next podcast as well.
Excellent.
I guess that'll wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing real quickly here, and that is we are raffling off an autographed Allen Robinson football. This is it. That's not it. This is it. We're raffling that off tonight. And so if you would like to participate in this raffle, all you got to do is go to the website that I'm going to flash up here on the screen. You're going to see it come. It's bit.ly. Let me call it up here. Sorry, got the wrong one up. It is bit.ly/ARob raffle. $1 gets you entry into the raffle. You put $5 in, that means you got 5 chances to win. So the more money you bid for in this raffle, the more money you got to the more chances you got to win this autographed Allen Robinson football. And all of the proceeds go to help out Allen Robinson's Within Reach program, which is a organization, a foundation that Allen heads, and it helps out inner city children reach their dreams. These are kids who are doing well at school but need that extra little boost to whether it's meals, whether it's tutoring, what have you, gives them that extra little boost so that they can reach their dreams. So hopefully you folks listening and watching will go to bit.ly/ARob raffle and get into the raffle. And then the football will be raffled off tonight, 7 p.m. on our YouTube channel here by the guys at the Barfly Tailgate Show, Bobby Bombs and Ryan Badgley, the Badge of Honor. So all of that is happening tonight right here on the Bar Room Network. I think now we can say goodbye. What do you think?
Well, first of all, money for a good cause. Only $1 contributed to that. And Allen Robinson is a really good dude, by the way. And I thought 5-6 weeks ago that he was going to get that contract from the Bears. It looked like it was on the cusp at that point. Didn't happen. And now at this point, I'm not so sure Allen Robinson wants, he'll say he wants to be with the Bears, but deep down, does he? I mean, he's got a chance maybe to go somewhere else and still get his money.
Well, here's the thing. Why would you want to stick around with a team that doesn't have a quarterback? Well, who was it? Was it Mushan Muhammad who said the Bears are where wide receivers go to die or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. It's sad.
Yeah, very sad, in fact.
Who's the best Bears quarterback you've seen in your years covering the Chicago Bears? Jimmy Mack?
Well, he had his moments, of course, and they won the Super Bowl, goes without saying. And I'll never forget that Thursday night game against Minnesota when he came off the bench. It was a Thursday night game, I think it was actually, and he was fun to be around. He's sort of snitty, to be honest with you, but they have not had very many good quarterbacks. Now, I will say this: Jay Cutler, and what a jerk he was, but he had the potential, and that underline that word. He had the size, he had the arm strength, he had the potential to be a good quarterback, and he put up a lot of yards, especially in Denver before he even came here. So he had the talent to do it. Unfortunately, it just never panned out, and he got destroyed. I'll never forget that game in New York or against the Giants at Giant Stadium when they buried him in that first half.
Yeah,
he was a tough motherfucker, if you will, but. I don't know, whatever.
I'm with you there. He probably the most talented quarterback I've witnessed with the Chicago Bears, but also the most disappointing because he was a poor leader. He was a poor people person. He had all of these other intangibles that just never worked in his favor because he was an asshole.
Yeah. Bottom line, they have not had very many good quarterbacks.
Yeah, sad, but true.
Anyway,
David, this was fun.
Yeah, been fun doing this with you, Aldo, and hopefully Greg will be back here shortly, getting over a little bit of an illness right now. So to everybody out there, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.